The arrival. The Exilari Dominion had conquered dozens of worlds. Their fleets moved through the galaxy like a storm, crushing all resistance. To them, war was simple: superior numbers, superior technology, and absolute control. Now, they had arrived at Sol System. Commander Virak stood on the bridge of the Exilari flagship, Doombringer. His red eyes gleamed as he gazed at the blue planet below. Earth, a backwater world, a place of primitive life. It was nothing more than another stepping stone for the Dominion's expansion. His fleet, consisting of 20 heavily armed warships, had surrounded the planet. They had already jammed all communications. No distress signals would leave this system. No help would come. Victory was certain. An auxiliary officer turned to him, her voice filled with arrogance. "Commander, our scans show only a few space stations and satellites. No significant defenses." Virak smirked. "As expected, send a transmission. Inform these humans that they are now part of the Exilari Dominion." The message was sent. Silence followed. Virak frowned. Most civilizations responded with fear. They begged for mercy, offered resources, or surrendered immediately. But Earth? Nothing. Then, a single blip appeared on the scanners. A ship, small, alone, moving toward them. Virak narrowed his eyes. "What is that?" The officer hesitated. "It appears to be a warship, sir, but the size does not match the energy readings." Virak scoffed. "A single ship? Are they mocking us?" The human warship, HS Vengeance, moved into position, directly facing the Exilari fleet. A communication request flashed on the screen. Virak sneered. "Finally, they speak." He nodded, and the human transmission opened. A man appeared on the screen. Calm, confident. His uniform was crisp, his gaze steady. "This is Captain James Keller of the United Terran Navy. You are trespassing in human space. You have one chance to leave." Silence filled the Exilari bridge. Then laughter erupted. Virak shook his head, amused. "Captain Keller, you are outnumbered 20-1. Your people should be begging for their lives." Keller didn't flinch. He simply tilted his head. "You think numbers matter." Before Virak could respond, a warning alert flashed across the bridge. The Exilari officers scrambled to check their screens. A moment later, a massive explosion rocked a nearby asteroid, one of their strategic outposts. The asteroid didn't just break, it vaporized. The bridge fell silent. The humans had fired a warning shot, and that shot had erased something the size of a small moon. Virak's heart pounded. Their most powerful weapons couldn't do that. Their fleet couldn't do that. The human captain's voice remained calm. "That was a warning. You won't get another." For the first time in his life, Commander Virak felt something unfamiliar. Fear. Silence hung in the air. The bridge of the Doombringer, once filled with arrogance and confidence, now felt suffocating. Commander Virak's red eyes remained locked on the screen, staring at the human warship. A single ship, one vessel. And yet, it had just displayed enough power to erase an asteroid, as if it were dust. Impossible. The officer beside him swallowed nervously. "Sir, what are your orders?" Virak's fingers curled into a fist. His pride screamed at him to unleash his fleet's firepower, to remind these primitive creatures who ruled the stars. But a sharp voice in his mind whispered caution. The humans had not fired upon them yet. They had given a warning, an invitation to step back. That meant one thing. They were confident. Virak took a deep breath, keeping his voice steady. "Scan that ship again." The officer obeyed, but after a few seconds, confusion spread across her face. "Commander, I don't understand. Its energy readings are inconsistent. One moment, it registers as a battleship. The next, it barely has the output of a transport vessel. What kind of trick is this?" The human captain, James Keller, was still on screen, watching them with an unsettling calmness. His words replayed in Virak's mind. You think numbers matter. A cold realization crept into Viric's thoughts. They wouldn't be this bold if they weren't prepared. For the first time, he hesitated. Then one of his officers gasped. "Sir, our targeting systems, they're failing." Viric's head snapped toward the screens. Red warning signs flickered across the command center. The fleet's weapon systems, previously locked on the human warship, were losing calibration. "What?" Viric barked. The officer's hands trembled over the controls. "It's them, sir. They are inside our systems." Viric's blood ran cold. Hacked. That was impossible. No species in the known galaxy had ever been able to crack Silari military firewalls. They were decades ahead of their enemies in cyber warfare. And yet, the human ship had already breached them. On the screen, Keller finally spoke again. His voice was polite, but his eyes held an edge of steel. "Let me be clear, Commander Viric. We are not negotiating. You have two options. Turn your fleet around and leave our system, or fire your weapons and see what happens." Viric clenched his jaw. His fleet still had 20 warships. If he gave the order, he could unleash a storm of plasma and nuclear fire. But there was a problem. They no longer controlled their own weapons. Panic started spreading among the Silari crew. Officers whispered to one another. Viric could feel it, the first cracks in their confidence. And Keller knew it. The human captain leaned forward slightly. "You have 10 seconds to decide." A countdown appeared on the screen. Viric's claws dug into the armrest of his chair. A single ship, a lone vessel, and yet it had the power to disable an entire fleet. His mind raced. The Dominion had crushed thousands of civilizations before. None had ever fought back like this. A Silari officer, his face pale, whispered, "Commander, we should retreat." Viric's pride roared in protest. The Dominion never retreated. But today, he had no choice. His throat felt dry. His voice was barely a whisper. "Stand down." The fleet powered down its weapons. The human captain smiled, not in mockery, but in understanding. "Good choice." Then, the transmission cut. For the first time in his life, Commander Viric had backed down from a battle. And that terrified him more than anything. Commander Viric sat frozen in his command chair, his claws gripping the armrests so tightly they nearly cracked. The bridge of the Doombringer was eerily silent. His officers dared not speak. The humiliation burned inside him like acid. A single human warship had forced the mighty Silari Dominion to stand down. Unacceptable. His species had ruled the stars for centuries. Civilizations had knelt before them. Empires had crumbled under their fleets. And yet, today, they had been outmaneuvered without a single shot being fired. Viric bared his teeth. "No, this isn't over." He turned sharply to his weapons officer. "Status on our systems." The officer hesitated before answering. "Their interference is fading, sir. Our targeting and shields are coming back online." Viric's mind raced. So, the humans didn't completely cripple us. That meant two possibilities. Either they couldn't sustain the hack for long, or they wanted us to recover. He wasn't sure which was worse. A soft chime echoed through the bridge. Another transmission. The humans again. Viric inhaled sharply, controlling his anger. "Put them on." Captain Keller's face appeared on screen, calm as ever. "Still here, Commander." Viric forced a smirk. "You've made your point, human. But we both know one ship, no matter how advanced, cannot stand against an entire fleet." Keller's expression didn't change. "Are you sure about that?" Before Viric could reply, alarms blared across the Silari bridge. Something was wrong. "Commander," a panicked officer shouted. "The human ship, it's moving." Viric turned to the main viewport. The HSS Vengeance was no longer stationary. It was accelerating straight at them. Not away. At them. A deep unease crawled up his spine. No sane captain would charge into a fleet 20 times their size. This was suicide. Unless they had a reason to be confident. Fire on that ship. Virik roared. His weapons officer slammed the controls. Energy cannons erupted from the auxiliary fleet, streaking toward the incoming human warship. Dozens of blasts, enough to tear through the shields of a capital ship. And then something impossible happened. The HSS Vengeance didn't evade. It didn't need to. The moment the first plasma bolt neared the ship, it vanished. Virik's breath caught. What? The human warship reappeared a second later, now behind one of his battleships. Faster than any auxiliary sensor could track. And it fired. A single shot. Virik had no time to react. His view screen flickered to a different perspective. A live feed from the targeted ship. The auxiliary battleship, one of their strongest, didn't just explode. It was cut in half. A clean, precise, impossibly fast strike. The front half of the battleship drifted lifelessly, its crew already gone. The back half, vaporized. The bridge of the Doombringer was dead silent. Virik's officers watched in horror. The auxiliary did not have weapons that could do this. The human ship, it wasn't just powerful. It was on an entirely different level of warfare. Virik's throat felt dry. This is impossible. Before he could process what had happened, the HSS Vengeance moved again. This time, it blurred out of existence, only to reappear beside a second auxiliary warship. Another shot. Another explosion. Another instant kill. Virik's heart pounded. Stop it. All ships. Open fire. His entire fleet responded. Hundreds of plasma and missile volleys filled the void. It didn't matter. The HSS Vengeance weaved through the chaos like a ghost. It teleported, flickered, dodged. Wherever it reappeared, auxiliary warship died. Within minutes, 3 more battleships were gone. 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 Commander Virik could only watch as his superior fleet was reduced to nothing but wreckage and flames. The auxiliary Dominion had never seen warfare like this. This was not a battle. This was a slaughter. A chilling realization settled over him. The humans had never been afraid. They had let the auxiliary believe they were superior. They had let the Dominion think their numbers mattered. But now they were teaching them a lesson. A final transmission came through. Keller's face appeared once more. He was still calm, still controlled. But this time, there was something else in his eyes. A warning. "Commander," he said, "this is your last chance. Leave now, or there won't be a fleet left to retreat." Virik's claws trembled. His mind screamed in rage. But his survival instincts, they forced him to accept the truth. He had no choice. All ships, retreat. And for the first time in auxiliary history, the Dominion fled. Commander Virik sat in his command chair, staring blankly at the flickering holoscreen. The auxiliary fleet was in full retreat, engines burning at maximum capacity. The once proud warships, symbols of the Dominion's unstoppable might, now fled like prey. The HSS Vengeance did not pursue. It didn't need to. It had already proven its point. Virik's officers were silent, their faces pale. The tension on the bridge was suffocating. No one dared speak, as if voicing their thoughts would make the nightmare more real. Virik's mind raced. How? How is this possible? The Dominion had crushed 1,000 civilizations. No species had ever fought back like this. No single warship had ever done this. 4 of his strongest battleships had been obliterated in minutes. And the humans? Untouched. This wasn't just technological superiority. This was something else. Something terrifying. A deep voice broke the silence. "Commander, what are your orders?" Virik blinked, snapping back to reality. His second-in-command, Officer Rolvik, stood stiffly at his side, his claws twitching. Fear was visible in his posture. They were all afraid. For the first time, Virik had no clear answer. What could they do? The Dominion had always attacked, conquered, controlled. But now, they had lost. He exhaled sharply. Send a transmission to High Command. They need to know what we've encountered. The communication officer nodded and turned to his console. A few seconds later, he hesitated. Virik frowned. Well, send it. The officer's voice wavered. Sir, they already know. A chill ran through Virik. What? He stepped forward. Explain. The officer's hands trembled as he pointed to the screen. We received a transmission from High Command. Virik's breath caught as he saw the message. It was short, and it was not what he expected. Silari Fleet Number 47. You have failed. You are no longer useful. You are on your own. The bridge fell into stunned silence. Virik's blood turned to ice. They've abandoned us. The Dominion had always been ruthless, but never like this. Even in failure, fleets were usually recalled, rearmed, repurposed, not discarded. Officer Rolvik took a step back, his voice shaking. They're cutting us off. Virik stared at the screen, heart pounding. This was more than just rejection. This was a death sentence. No Xilari fleet could operate without Dominion resources. Without their supply lines, they would run out of fuel, food, and repairs within weeks. They couldn't return home. The moment they tried, the Dominion would destroy them for weakness. Virik gritted his teeth. No, this can't be happening. He turned to his officers. We are not defeated. We can still strike back. But even as he spoke, doubt crept into his mind. Strike back? With what? The answer came almost instantly. They needed a new plan, a desperate plan. Virik inhaled sharply, then looked at the navigation officer. Pull up the latest scans of Earth's defenses. The officer hesitated. Sir. Virik's eyes burned with resolve. We're not retreating. We're taking the fight to their homeworld. Gasps echoed around the bridge. Even Officer Rolvik looked shaken. Sir, that's suicide. Virik's voice turned cold. Would you rather starve in deep space, hunted by our own kind? Silence. No one spoke, because they all knew the truth. They had no future in the Dominion. Their only chance: destroy Earth, cripple humanity before they could become a real threat. Virik clenched his fists. We have the coordinates. We still have firepower. We will strike their planet directly. One decisive blow. If we cannot rule this galaxy, then we will burn it. The officers hesitated, then slowly nodded. There was no turning back now. The Xilari fleet, wounded, desperate, and filled with fury, set course for Earth. Their final battle had begun. The stars blurred as the remnants of the Xilari fleet cut through space, engines burning with every last drop of fuel they had left. They had no home to return to, no support from the Dominion, no allies. All they had left was vengeance. Commander Virik stood on the bridge of the Doombringer, his red eyes locked on the distant blue orb ahead. Earth. The humans had humiliated them, shattered their pride, and exposed the weakness of the mighty Xilari Dominion. Now, Virik would repay them in fire. How long until we reach firing range? He demanded. An officer, his face still pale from their last battle, swallowed hard before answering. 4 minutes, Commander. 4 minutes until they could rain destruction upon humanity's homeworld. 4 minutes until history was rewritten. Virik's claws tapped against the metal railing. This was a suicide mission. He knew it. His officers knew it. But it didn't matter. If they were going to die, they would make the humans pay first. His fleet, though diminished, still had enough firepower to level entire continents. If they hit Earth's major cities, its industrial centers, its military command posts, they could cripple the humans before they could spread across the stars. And maybe, just maybe, the Dominion would realize their mistake in abandoning them. The countdown ticked down. 3 minutes. Then, alarms blared. Virik's eyes snapped toward the holo display. Something was coming. Fast. Incoming contacts. An officer shouted. Multiple signatures. Unknown ships. Vyric's claws dug into the metal. More human warships. The screen flickered, and his breath caught in his throat. Dozens of vessels burst out of subspace, forming a defensive line between Earth and the Exilari fleet. Sleek, angular ships, glowing with energy signatures unlike anything the Exilari had ever seen. Their hulls pulsed with an eerie blue light, and their weapon systems hummed with barely contained power. They were not the same as the HSS Vengeance. These were different. These were worse. Vyric's second-in-command, Rolvik, took a step back. His voice was barely a whisper. "Sir, I don't think those are normal human ships." Vyric bared his teeth. "What are they?" The communication officer paled. "Sir, we're being hailed." Vyric hesitated. Then, with a sharp nod, he gave the order. "Put them through." The screen flickered, and a new figure appeared. A woman. She was human. At least, mostly. But something about her felt wrong. Her eyes glowed, faint lines of energy pulsing beneath her skin. She wore a uniform unlike anything Vyric had seen before. Black, with silver patterns shifting like liquid metal. When she spoke, her voice was calm, controlled, and inhuman. Commander Vyric of the Exilari Dominion. Her glowing eyes narrowed slightly. "You have made a mistake." A cold chill spread through the bridge. Vyric straightened, masking his unease. "And who are you supposed to be?" The woman tilted her head slightly. "I am Admiral Seraphine of the Terran Ascendancy." Vyric frowned. "The what?" Seraphine continued as if he hadn't spoken. "You encountered the HSS Vengeance." That was a warning. She leaned forward slightly, her glowing eyes locked onto Vyric. "We are not giving another." Vyric sneered. "You think you can intimidate me? Your ship caught us off guard before, but now, we outnumber you." Seraphine didn't react. "You do not understand what you are facing." Vyric growled. "Then show me." She did. A moment later, the holoscreen changed, displaying Earth's orbit. What Vyric saw made his blood run cold. The fleet in front of them. It was nothing compared to what lay hidden. Hundreds of human warships uncloaked at once. They had been waiting. They had been watching. And now they were ready. Vyric's officers froze in horror. The Terran ships stretched out in all directions, filling the void of space like an unbreakable wall. Each one pulsed with energy unlike anything that Exilari had ever seen. Vyric's voice came out as a whisper. "Impossible." Seraphine's voice remained calm. "You should have left when you had the chance." The Exilari fleet had seconds to react. Then, the humans opened fire. It wasn't just weapons fire. It was obliteration. Blinding energy beams sliced through Exilari warships like they were made of paper. Ships detonated instantly as blue-white lances of energy cut through their shields, armor, and crew in a single shot. Plasma torpedoes moved faster than light itself, ripping apart entire capital ships before they could even process they'd been hit. The Exilari fleet was powerful. But this was something else. This was technology that shouldn't exist. This was humanity unleashed. The Doombringer rocked violently as a nearby battleship erupted into fire. Vyric could do nothing but watch as his fleet, the last remnants of his command, his pride, his very existence, was erased. One by one, his ships died. They never stood a chance. Vyric's vision blurred as another explosion rocked the ship. Sparks rained from the ceiling. Smoke filled the bridge. Officers screamed, consoles shattered, alarms wailed. Then, the holoscreen flickered. Admiral Seraphine stared at him, her glowing eyes calm. "This is the end of your war, Commander." The Doombringer's systems crashed. Engines failed. Power flickered. Weapons went offline. The ship drifted, dead in space. Vyric's claws trembled. This wasn't war. This was extermination. And the humans had won. He fell back into his chair, staring blankly at the screen. His final thoughts were bitter. We never stood a chance. And then, darkness, silence. Commander Virik felt weightless, his vision blurred as he drifted in the ruins of what was once the Doombringer. Fires still raged through what remained of the mighty Xilari warship, but the battle was already over. No, it had never been a battle. It had been a reckoning. The Xilari fleet was gone. His empire had abandoned him. And now he floated powerlessly in the void, surrounded by the wreckage of his own arrogance. Virik coughed, tasting blood. His suit's emergency systems had barely kept him alive, sealing off the breaches in his armor. But survival was not victory. A shadow loomed over him. A massive ship moved through the debris field, untouched by the destruction around it. It was human, sleek and flawless, glowing with energy unlike anything Virik had seen before. It was impossible. We thought they were primitives. We were wrong. A bright light engulfed him, and suddenly, gravity returned. Virik collapsed onto a cold metal floor, gasping. They had teleported him. A moment later, mechanical footsteps echoed through the chamber. Virik forced himself to his feet. His vision cleared, and he found himself face to face with Admiral Seraphine. She was just as unnerving in person. Her glowing blue eyes studied him without emotion, the pulsing energy beneath her skin giving her an almost inhuman quality. Virik clenched his jaw. "You should have killed me." Seraphine tilted her head slightly. "You assume we want you dead." Virik's claws twitched. "You destroyed my fleet, wiped us out without effort. What more is there?" Seraphine's gaze didn't waver. "Understanding." Virik's breath caught. "Understanding." He bared his teeth. "What could you possibly want to understand?" Seraphine stepped forward. "You came to destroy us." Her voice was calm, controlled. Not angry, not triumphant, just stating a fact. "Yet you never once asked why we let you find us." Virik froze. "What?" Seraphine didn't blink. "You think this was your first encounter with humanity?" A cold feeling crept into Virik's spine. "What are you saying?" Seraphine raised a hand. The room darkened, and a massive holodisplay appeared around them. Virik staggered. It showed Xilari history. Wars, expansions, the rise of the Dominion. Every victory, every conquered species, every atrocity. Then the display changed. New images appeared. Images of humans. Virik's breathing slowed. No, this isn't possible. The images predated first contact. Humans had been watching them, studying them. Seraphine spoke again. "We knew about you long before you knew about us." Virik's claws dug into his palms. That's impossible. Our sensors would have." "Your sensors saw what we let them see." The room shifted again. Now it showed something else. Xilari ships vanishing. Subtle manipulations of battles, small technological disruptions. Entire planetary coups that had seemed like natural revolts. Virik's heart pounded. The Dominion never knew. They thought they had been in control. But in the shadows, humanity had been interfering all along. Virik's voice was barely a whisper. "Why?" Seraphine's glowing eyes locked onto him. "Because we were deciding." A pause. "Deciding if your species was worth saving." Virik's blood went cold. Seraphine continued. "The Dominion thinks in terms of conquest, of power, of control, but you never considered the possibility that there are others who do not fight for dominance. Asterisk, 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 asterisk. We do not conquer. We do not destroy for the sake of destruction." Her voice lowered. "We evolve. We adapt. We prepare." Virik swallowed. "Prepare for what?" Seraphine's expression darkened. "The real war." The holodisplay shifted again. This time, it showed something that made even Virik's battle-hardened heart stop. Beyond the borders of the Dominion, beyond the edges of known space, something was coming. It wasn't Xilari. It wasn't human. It wasn't anything he had ever seen before. Seraphine's voice was quiet. You thought we revealed ourselves because of your fleet. She turned to face him fully. But the truth is, Commander, her eyes glowed brighter. We didn't prepare for you. We prepared for them. Varric felt the weight of those words settle into his chest. A war greater than anything the galaxy had ever seen was coming. And the Dominion had been blind to it. His breath trembled. For the first time, he realized humanity had never been afraid of the Exilari. Because compared to what was coming, the Dominion was nothing. Varric stood frozen, his mind unable to process what he had just seen. Beyond the Dominion's borders, beyond anything the Exilari had ever mapped, there was something else. Something worse. The holo display flickered again, shifting from a distant star map to something far more horrifying. A battlefield. Not one fought with warships or planetary invasions. This was different. The images showed entire solar systems consumed. Planets stripped bare, not bombarded by weapons, but drained. Cities hollowed out, leaving behind nothing but lifeless husks. Stars themselves flickered and died, as if something had devoured their very energy. Varric took a step back. What is this? Admiral Seraphine's voice was steady. The reason we never fought you. She turned to face him fully. You were never our true enemy. The room fell silent. Varric clenched his jaw. You're telling me the Dominion is insignificant? Seraphine's glowing eyes didn't waver. No, I'm telling you that your entire empire, your entire way of life, is based on an illusion. You believe war is the natural state of the universe. The holo display zoomed in, showing something that made Varric's blood turn to ice. A Exilari fleet, one far larger than his own, engaged in battle. But they weren't fighting humans. They were fighting something else. Something wrong. At first, it was hard to comprehend. The enemy ships weren't made of metal or alloys. They didn't have defined shapes. They were shifting, pulsing, almost as if they were alive. The Exilari fleet opened fire. Energy beams, torpedoes, kinetic slugs, everything they had. Nothing worked. The enemy ships absorbed the attacks, warping and twisting as if they were adapting in real time. Then they struck back. The first Exilari battleship didn't explode. It melted. Its structure was dissolved from the inside out, the hull vanishing in mere seconds as if being consumed by something unseen. The crew never had a chance to scream. The second ship fared no better. Its energy shields flared once, then collapsed instantly. Strange tendrils of black energy wrapped around the hull, and within moments, the entire ship turned gray and lifeless. No wreckage, no bodies, just emptiness. Varric's breathing quickened. This can't be real. Seraphine watched him closely. This is why we never saw you as a threat. The display changed again, showing a disturbing pattern. These things, whatever they were, weren't just attacking at random. They were moving toward the center of the galaxy, toward Dominion space. Seraphine continued. We intercepted their movements centuries ago. We learned from them, adapted. That's why the HSS Vengeance was beyond anything you'd ever seen, because we've been preparing for them. She turned back to him, her expression unreadable. The real war is about to begin, Commander, and you are not ready. Varric's mind raced. This changed everything. The Dominion's entire belief system, the idea that they were the apex species, that they ruled through conquest, meant nothing in the face of this. Because you can't conquer something that doesn't recognize you as a threat. The Exilari had spent centuries crushing weaker civilizations, thinking themselves unstoppable. And all this time, the true enemy had been watching, waiting. Varric swallowed hard. If what you're saying is true, he hesitated, forcing himself to say the words that burned his pride. Then why are you telling me? Seraphine stepped forward. Because despite everything, you still have a choice. Varric frowned. A choice. Seraphine's voice remained steady. The Dominion has abandoned you. You are no longer one of them. She motioned toward the display. You can either die here, clinging to a broken empire. The image shifted to something else, a fleet, larger than anything Virak had ever seen. Human ships, but not just warships. Factories, colonizers, research stations, an exodus, or you can help us fight what's coming. The weight of her words sank into Virak's chest like a stone. The Dominion had cast him aside. The humans had spared him. And now, they were offering him something unthinkable, a place in the real war. For the first time in his life, Virak saw beyond his own pride. And he realized the truth. The humans had never feared the Exilari. Because in the grand scheme of the universe, the Exilari were nothing more than children playing at war. The real fight had yet to begin. Virak exhaled slowly, looking Seraphine in the eye, and made his choice.